Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It is me, it is Nate, it is midway through December. I finally have snow, a light little dusting today. Very exciting for the 5-year-old. How's winter settling into the bones over there?
Yeah, no snow. We don't really get snow here. I mean, I think it snowed twice since I've lived here. And one time it kind of accumulated on cars, but that was about it. Like it didn't last until the next day. So you don't really get the winter wonderland weather here. It's just dark.
You get all the worst parts of winter happen in England. Like not even the well, it's snowing, but it'll be a good couple of inches so we can go sled and we can throw snowballs and it's just like, no, everything's going to be a dark slurry on the streets because the taxis will never stop running. And it's just going to be cold, but not so cold where you're like, I have to put on all these layers where you think you can get away with like a few less, but you're just never going to be warm.
A couple of days ago, maybe a week ago, I was cutting some because I had like ivy in my garden, and it's finally like the leaves have all died. So I finally was like, yeah, I'm gonna cut some of these vines off because they're covering one of the beds that I want to use for like produce in the spring. And I just wore a t-shirt. I mean, it wasn't comfortable sit outdoors, not do anything t-shirt weather, but it was, I mean, for a guy from central Indiana, it's absolutely fine for wearing a t-shirt while working in the garden. Like if
Yeah.
I'd been wearing a
Yeah.
sweatshirt, I would have gotten sweaty out there working in the garden and that. Like it's really so it doesn't really get that cold. I mean, we right now it's hilariously kind of mild. Like maybe a week ago we were getting temperatures close to freezing at night, but now the lowest that it's getting is like I have to do the conversion now back into Fahrenheit because I'm so used to Celsius at this point. But the lows have been like 6 or 8 Celsius, so that's like I think in the mid to high 40s. It's really not that cold, and then in the highs in the daytimes have been in the 50s. But yeah,
See,
it'll.
and that would
Here's the thing.
that'd work for me.
But the thing you got to deal with is that houses are so poorly built and so poorly insulated here that when it gets down into like a couple of degrees above freezing, you absolutely feel cold because it's just we live in an old Victorian house. There's no insulation in the construction here. It has relatively new windows, but they were not very well installed. So like it's really drafty around the windowsills and stuff, or like the window frames and stuff like that. Um, Most old houses will not have double glazed windows, and everything is obviously with radiators. So yeah, surprisingly, you feel colder in here. I feel like people that I know who have lived in Germany, where it gets way colder in the winter, or in places like Scandinavia, have said that it's kind of hilarious because British people are always like, "Oh, well, our homes are built to retain heat. That's why they're so hot in the summer." It's like, no, they're just fucking drafty. They let in hot air and they let in cold air. Like,
They're poorly built, and no matter what the temperature is, unless it's 70 degrees outside, it's just not a well-built house.
exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing too is that they because everything about this country is by and for landlords. The building standards are very, very low here, like way lower than elsewhere in Europe. And obviously, there's a huge incentive to just extract rent from your fucked up house versus doing anything to fix it. So, yeah, man, there's a huge problem here with substandard housing. Like, I recall seeing some study performed that people were citing, like an infographic online that shows that of all the countries in Western and Northern Europe, the UK is by far the worst. And the only country that's even remotely as bad as the UK is the Republic of Ireland, which makes sense that it was run by the United Kingdom directly until 1922, I think. And so, yeah, go figure. They also have a housing shortage and landlord economy and stuff like that. And elsewhere in Europe, obviously, elsewhere in Europe, you also have the condition that most houses, by and large, in big cities are newer because they were all destroyed in the war. But that didn't happen in fucking Norway, and yet Norway doesn't have fucked up houses. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. It's like it reminds me of the old manor that I lived in, where it was built before indoor plumbing and it was built before um it had radiant heaters, but of course it didn't have air conditioning and stuff. We had to put window units in. But like it had transoms over all the windows. And it had, once we figured out how Victorian era people kept things warm and cool in the house, like that opened up so much to us. Like, oh, we put big curtains in front of the windows that block out sun during the summer, but also insulate the inside during the winter. Like there's so many things that you can do when a house is built for that. Like you're saying Scandinavia, Norway, they built their houses and they built their buildings like with, hey, it gets fucking cold here in mind. Let's build them insulated and always keep that in mind. And England just seems like, well, it doesn't get that cold. Like the entire like British the British mind is built off of just having a stiff upper lip about things. It seems so. It's just like stop complaining. It's not the Blitz. So shut up.
I disagree with that. Actually, the whole stiff upper lip thing is a ruse. British people are hysterical whiners about everything, and it's not really that bad. Like that's like so much of what you were sold about Britain is hilariously like very, very just good marketing.
The imperial propaganda has wormed its way into my brain. I bet you're going to tell me everybody's teeth are nice too.
I mean, their teeth are by and large fine. I mean, they just don't do as much cosmetic stuff as Americans do. But you also don't have this huge disconnect between, like in America, you either have enough money to take care of your teeth and thus have like movie star teeth, or you're broke as shit and you have no dental care. You don't really have that here, but it is expensive, and so like you can only get braces on the NHS if like there's a massive need. And obviously, dentists, orthodontists have a incentive to not, recommend that you get it for free. So yeah, fewer people get braces, for example. But another thing too, the whole "keep calm and carry on" posters, right?
Uh-huh.
Those were never used, right?
I think I read
those
that
were
before,
created
yeah.
in the event of basically in the event of the Nazis invading England. The government was setting up things that they would use to, it's like propaganda stuff. And they created those posters in 1940, and they opted to not use them because they were found to be smug and condescending, and they pissed people off and engendered more distaste than solidarity. But then they were
This is why I have to stop learning everything that I know about England from watching Doctor Who, I guess.
And so what's funny is that they were rediscovered and they've become like this national symbol that people love them so much. And it's like, no, that's a false memory. That's false nostalgia for something that never existed. People didn't want those in 1940 because they were like, fuck you. Don't you tell me to keep calm and carry on. You're not the ones having to fucking break into the subway because they refused to build bomb shelters. Like,
right. My house was obliterated 3 weeks ago. I'm not carrying on anything other than, drinking this bottle of sherry and crawling under a table to cry.
Yeah, exactly. So,
which is perfectly understandable. Like you don't need to keep a stiff upper lip during the Blitz, y'all. It's fine. You can be panicked.
But yeah, I mean, because people didn't keep a stiff upper lip during the Blitz. That's the thing, right? And so it's always invoked as like, oh, you think your problems are bad? Try living through the Blitz. And it's like, 10,000 odd people died in the Blitz, and the Blitz response was such a catastrophic failure of the government that people literally took it into their own hands and broke into the tube stations because the bomb shelter situation was inadequate. Like so much of this stuff is, like I said, it's like they have created this false narrative, and I mean Americans do it too. It's just for you and me when we encounter this stuff about America. We're used to the false narrative and like the critiques of it. And so like, I'm sort of, I don't know, man, it's weird living here and experiencing this stuff and learning what I've learned by living here. I find myself sort of you're like the angsty, edgy 14-year-old being like, whoa, man, that shit's all a lie. Like I'm learning how much of what we're sold of what Britain is very much just marketing. And never underestimate the strength of false narratives, of comforting narratives or animating narratives. Like, for example, the narrative that apparently Trump dropped a thermobaric bomb and killed 50,000 Chinese soldiers who were trying to invade Maine via Canada.
This is one of my favorite things because, Nate, you and I are in the military, and while we are not bomb technicians, we also understand various things about the military, about how things in the military works. And I really wish that there is like that there's a good QAnon person that was ex-military that does these deep dives. Like there's plenty of military QAnons, but they're not doing the research, they're not doing the work like Relentless Truth here, elect ROTUS, which I don't know what ROTUS means, RTOTUS. and then 3 stars. At LeBron on roids, which seems very unfair that somebody with a dope at like that is not a shitposting leftist, is instead a QAnon person. But you know what? We take what we can get. But this first tweet, I guess this is about Steve Quayle. Has a little short video, and then it really dives in. It says, "Eyes on Patriot. Steve Quayle broke the news yesterday that an F-16 was shot down by the Chinese, and a 30,000-pound bunker buster bomb was dropped on a bunker in Robinson, Maine, killing 50,000 Chinese." There is a whole lot of logistics here that we got to dive into first before any
Yeah, I'm confused here for a second. First of all, now I may be a simple country dumbass, but I feel like a 30,000-pound bomb is not. I'm not even gonna, because you know what? I haven't dug into this. I couldn't tell you if that exists or not. But if it does exist, there are very, very few airframes that are going to be able to drop a bomb of that size. And the reason being,
it's not an F-16.
Yeah, certainly not. Yeah. An F-16 absolutely could not carry that. I mean, when F-16s and other platforms like that drop munitions, they're dropping 500-pound bombs or 1,000-pound bombs, not 30,000-pound bombs. Now, I'm sure, I like I said, when I think about like the max capacity of some of these airframes, yeah, I'm sure they could, but it's not an easy thing to displace that much weight from a plane, like in flight. So, first of all, would be a big deal. Secondly, a 30,000-pound bomb going off would be a big deal. Third, how does one kill 50,000 people with a single bomb strike in a bunker? That implies.
See, there are 50. God, and I don't like being in an open bay barracks with like 20 soldiers. I can't imagine being crammed underground with 50,000 people, just like anybody. Like, I know that generally the Chinese are a little bit smaller in frame than Americans, so maybe that would make it a little bit easier, but also I just don't like being touched by strangers, especially by my fellow soldiers. So 50,000 underground. Somehow we have an underground bunker in Maine that was built without any knowledge of you, me, or the United States government. Or maybe it was. Maybe we just found it. That's why we dropped a bomb on it. I don't know why we allowed a massive underground complex like this to be built in the first place, but okay. Now, dropping bombs secretly, that only happens in some places. One of those places is not on the Canadian border with Maine. You can, North Korea can drop bombs secretly. Russia can drop bombs secretly. The way that we can tell if other countries are testing nuclear bombs isn't that like somebody's like, oh hey, there's a big mushroom cloud over there.
They're not being tested above ground. They're being detonated underground,
right.
There's seismic
activity.
They're
being detonated underground, but also we're picking up radioisotopes in the air. Like, so there's not just like, oh shit, there was a big explosion. Sometimes you get you can do seismographic evidence. But in general, guys, the point here is you cannot drop a bomb like this in Canada or in America and nobody fucking know about it. Like, that's not we don't have an area like that. Now, don't get me wrong. If somebody told me, hey, Montana was bombed like a week ago and we just found out about it, maybe I could understand that, because Montana's a whole lot of nothing. There's a lot of big open areas there that you can blow up. However, Maine and Canada, I feel with two governments kind of keeping an eye on things, somebody would have said something beforehand. But this is only tweet one, Nate. We have plenty more to get into.
Yeah, so the tweet basically says, we'll just read through this. There was a 3.0 earthquake recorded 9 miles from Calais at 9:31 a.m. on Wednesday. Calais just happens to be roughly 10 miles away from Robinson, Maine. Steve Quayle said reports claimed the 50,000 troops were brought in by boat from the Bay of Fundy, right on the Canadian border. There's more. Remember on June 4th, Q posted a very interesting drop that seemed like one not meant for Anons. It caught my eye specifically because of the last line, Castle Rock. Castle Rock is a fictional town in Maine, created by none other than Stephen King, who lives a half hour from me in his mansion with hidden rooms and tunnels behind Mansfield Stadium. He coached my brother's team back in the day.
Okay, before you continue, I do want to also bring up a tweet. So these tweets are from December 11th. And then a tweet from Stephen King himself a day ago. While out for my morning walk, a guy flashed by on his bike, yelled, "Trump, Trump, Trump, get ready for civil war," and swung back to add, "Go back to Maine, you piece of shit. This is political discourse in Trump's America." So, like, look, I understand if you're not a Stephen King fan, but don't go harass the man. He's old. You know, he just wrote some scary books, and it's okay.
Yeah,
I don't
think
know
he
if
spends
maybe
winter in Florida too, so that's probably where he was at. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, like if Maine, if like if we're concerned that there's like 50,000 Chinese troops under his house in these hidden places, but could be, maybe it is. I don't know why somebody would tell him to go back to Maine.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, if he's in Florida, it's not that much better. It's just warmer.
yeah, I mean, if I remember correctly, Stephen King and his wife opted to spend time in Florida during the winter because not that long ago, I mean, he was in a really bad car accident, and then also I think he had like a fall, and he's just like, it's fucking cold in Maine in the wintertime. I'm really tired of dealing with this shit. I'm a billionaire. So, you know,
I fully like I know people who live in Maine, man, and you gotta love, like, you got a lot of freedom up in Maine. You got a lot of freedom, but it's real cold too. So
yeah, I mean, Maine is one of the only. Maine's the only place on the as I understand it, Maine is the only state in the lower 48 states that has like unincorporated land. Like in the far northwest part of the state, I'm pretty sure that it's not really, there isn't really any like region government kind of, you know what I mean? Like it's not like it doesn't fall under like a specific township or whatever. Like it's legitimately unincorporated. Yeah, so I mean, it's wild as fuck up there. I've actually
there's not necessarily cops or ambulances that come to you up there.
Mm-hmm. I've actually never been. Maine's one of the only states in the U.S. I've never been to. So I actually would love to visit sometime. Although I've heard it has ups and downs. So anyway, the thread continues. The post was dropped on June 4th. Who showed up in Maine on June 5th? Trump made a special trip here to curiously open fishing waters off the coast of Maine that Obama, all caps, had closed off to protect marine wildlife. We all know Barack could care less, so why the closure? Was he possibly trying to keep commercial fishermen out of the area so boats could sneak the Chinese to the bunker off the coast of Maine? I knew that drop was important from the second I saw, and I knew the trip that followed had much deeper meaning. I'd love help digging.
I love that this has turned into a Dunkirk like flotilla now, because you think, how do you get 50,000 Chinese into America in Maine? Like there's no easy way. Like if I was the Chinese and going to invade America, I would do pretty much what they did in Red Dawn and attack not the East Coast. You have to go down, man. You have to go down around South America. You got to go through the Panama Canal if you want to do that, and somebody's going to notice. You can't just boat around 50,000 deadly Chinese warriors to a bunker underneath Stephen King's house without somebody finding out.
Well, yeah,
it.
I mean, think
I just
about
refuse
that
to believe our logistics are that bad.
You either have to go all the way, like you said, all the way around South America and go through the Panama Canal, go through the Suez Canal, or go around the Cape of Good Hope and basically traverse the entire world from China in vessels that are not marked from the Chinese military. Otherwise, people will notice. And you have to do this 50, 60 times, doing troop ships, carrying people, I don't know, container ships, and no one has to know. So, nowadays, when literally everyone's got a fucking device that can film things, you're saying that this flotilla, this armada of non-marked vessels smuggled the population of like Moline, Illinois, all the way from China, and no one saw anything.
This is an invasion force, so it's not just 50,000 soldiers with small arms. Like, you got to bring some artillery,
yeah, you got to bring armor,
some tanks,
you got to bring vehicles, you got to set up cantonment areas, you got to set up fuel stuff,
food. Right? They got to shower, they got to eat, they got to shit. What are you doing with all of that for 50,000? Like, I've lived on a base with Bagram. When I was in Bagram, it had 15,000, and that seemed crowded to me. And that was kind of a big, Bagram Air Base is pretty big, so. And when I was in Iraq, Basra had probably maybe about 20 or 30,000. So and we had I'm not going to say sophisticated, but we could all shit and eat and it was clean, but that it takes a lot of logistics.
I doubt that there is so large a population of Chinese Canadians as to make it imperceptible when 50,000 PLA soldiers and all of the people who are there to support them logistically show up. But as we know, that never stops people's imaginations from running wild. So let's continue this thread.
Well, I am going to say I've been looking at Google Maps. I've been doing a little QAnoning myself and figured if Chinese ships could go up from China, sneak past Alaska between Russia, which I assume they'd be helping Russia out, go up through the Arctic Ocean, either pass by Resolute while going through unincorporated Canada, or go by Alert, go through Baffin Bay, hightail it around Greenland, through the Labrador Sea, then come down around Newfoundland, and then I guess there's this. I mean, look, if I was going to, because I can see New Brunswick, I'm trying to figure out where. Okay, what's the state or the city that he said? Calais.
Calais.
It doesn't give me an exact spot, but there's a lot of it's up around Newfoundland. New Brunswick. It is Canada. It is full on fully Canada. But yeah, I don't think you could bomb New Brunswick. I don't think you could do it. Also, this is very I'm from the Midwest, so I don't know. But isn't the closer you get to the ocean, the lower it is. So really, you don't want to necessarily be digging underground tunnels to sustain a lot of people around ocean areas because it would just get flooded with water.
I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like this doesn't seem like something that makes a lot of sense, but
I'm trying to help him make it make sense. I obviously I don't want to get whatever brainworms it takes to be a Q supporter, but I do want to at least be like, okay, well, is there legit? I mean, obviously 50,000 underground Chinese soldiers we know is an impossibility, but could you conceivably sneak them there? Could you conceivably bomb Canada and get away with it? Maybe and maybe so far.
So yeah, I mean, I'll take it back. I thought Calais was in Quebec. Actually, Calais is in Maine, and St. Stephen is in New Brunswick across the border. So we're looking at the New Brunswick, Maine border here.
There's a Walmart in Calais.
Yeah, because it's in Maine. So what they're basically saying is that somehow now. I understand what you said, Francis, but to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure that even in summer weather, even with the recession of Arctic ice and whatnot, that you can make that journey without icebreakers and stuff, because I just don't think you can. And here's the other thing, too. If you could, let's say you could, right? Let's say it's possible. I don't think there's a significantly large amount of time that you can do that in, where it will be ice-free enough to make that journey viable. And that would sort of imply that doing those trips one at a time as to not attract attention would not really work. You would either have to have a big-ass ship, you would have to have a container ship, which I don't think they go that way, where every shipping container was full of multiple soldiers, or you'd have to do this over the course of multiple years, or you'd have to take a different route that's not going over the Arctic Circle. So
here's the thing, Nate. I figured it out.
What's that?
November 6, 2012, Donald Trump tweets, "The concept of global warming was created by and for the Chinese in order to make U.S. manufacturing non-competitive." What if he was wrong? What if global warming was created by and for the Chinese so they could attack us in Maine by melting Arctic ice water? Huh?
Very true. This is very true.
Q drop. Boom.
Yeah, if the Chinese created global warming, they could then go through the Bering Straits, up through the Chukchi Sea, the Beaufort Sea, around the Arctic, come back down, do some full-on Ferdinand Magellan shit, and come around to New Brunswick and create a secret base in New Brunswick, underground, with 50,000 troops and all their retainers and supporters, but then every single one of them got killed by a bunker buster, leaving zero trace behind, a thing that, as we know, happens all the time in warfare. And as such, we'll never know what their actual plot was.
let's be honest, Nate. Didn't we drop a Moab in Afghanistan? And everybody's just like, yeah, we dropped it. Nobody needs to go look for any evidence. We killed like 200 ISIS bad guys, and that's all we need to talk about. So like the idea of dropping a bomb that nobody can really figure out is not, because I still don't know if we actually dropped a Moab. Like I'm not 100% sure that like yes we dropped the ordnance airburst whatever. I mean maybe. So I don't think, but I'm with you on I don't think that it would kill 50,000 people and we don't find anything about it. Like you can kill 200 ISIS people with a bomb and in Afghanistan and in a remote area and say, yeah, sure, we did that and nobody's really going to go check on it. But I feel like Canada would go look into it. But this guy says that he lived 9 miles away from it, so I don't understand why he didn't go up there and, you know, dig up some papers or something. Like, there's got to be some kind of intel that we can get from this, or at least a picture.
Well, that's
you know,
the thing,
you're
right?
9 miles away.
Well, I suppose this basically implies that this bunker buster was so precise that it detonated but didn't make a sound because it just did some serious bunker busting and all of like the explosion was underground so no one heard it. Which okay. Don't think that technology exists. But you know what?
Went into the bunker and flew all the way through every tunnel and just killed everybody without exploding.
Exactly. And
it's one of those sword bombs, right? Instead of exploding, it just shoots swords.
Exactly. And it then collapsed the tunnel before any noise could get out. So it effectively was like destroying an anthill silently with a 30,000-pound bomb somehow. And there were a little bit of vibrations, but nothing really to worry about. And it was so precise and accurate that no trace remains of anything. Not a single cell phone with a fucking Ren profile on it. You know, not a single, any trace, no uniforms, no weapons, no nothing.
We should use this war technology in the actual wars we're in. Maybe we wouldn't be in them for 20 years.
Yeah, we could kick so much ass. But this bomb is only being deployed by Trump because he knows that if he doesn't deploy this, that 50,000 Chinese troops are going to invade Maine and nowhere else but Maine and take over Maine. And then they're going to just wrench the American economy by removing our major source of lobster and heroin. And we're not going to fucking have anything left. What are we going to do without that lobster? What are we going to do?
We'll have to really lean on the Massachusetts, on the Boston boys for that one now.
Yeah, I mean, I was just laughing about it too. It's like we're not going to have maple syrup. We're not going to have lobster.
We can get that from Vermont. We don't need Maine, all right? Like, I'm okay with having Maine, but we don't need Maine. And also, Maine didn't get wiped off the map. And also, they bombed Canada, not America. So it's fine. It's Canada.
But I'm saying, what happens if the Chinese take over? Like, because that's the thing, right? You have to understand the Chinese mind. You have to imagine, you know, why would they, if they were going to launch an international military invasion, why would they take over Taiwan, for example? You know, an island that was at one point part of China, and that they have a big argument about whether or not it technically is China or not. You know, why would they do something that makes sense when they can take over Maine? You know, they can destroy America by making Stephen King homeless. They can remove our access to really rocky and cold beaches. They can take away a significant chunk of our maple syrup production. There's so much damage they can cause. So in a way, this makes sense. You know, like the Chinese don't want to occupy America. They just want to sap America's resolve. And as we know, if we lose Maine, we basically lose the heart of America.
So falls Maine, so goes the rest of America.
Exactly.
To be fair, there's probably more guns in Maine than there are in Texas. So yeah,
that's true.
I think if somebody was going to repel the Chinese, it would be Mainers very easily. It just see a bunch of like Chinese soldiers in a I don't know what kind of tank that they use these days, and just like some old man with a shotgun, just like, well, time to start a guerrilla war.
Yeah, exactly. He's been stocking up on plaid his entire fucking life for this. So let's continue in on this thread here. He says, this always has me wondering again about Trump's quick, unexpected trip back here to Maine just before the election to visit a tiny apple orchard for 15 minutes. I'd also like to circle back to Castle Rock. As many of you may know, it was made into a TV series recently. And from what I've watched, the main premise is that the devil is walking the earth and he's taken over Castle Rock and causes chaos throughout the town. Major symbolism.
That's the plot of half of Stephen King's books.
There's a haunted town in Maine where bad things happen. Wow, never, ever heard that before.
That's literally his thing.
Stephen King wants you to know that basically all of the human condition is contained within Maine, and also a lot of supernatural things. There's some magic children with learning disabilities. There's some, boys discovering the true nature of America when they go to find a body that was killed on the train tracks on Labor Day 1959. Here's the thing that Q is leaving out. The bomb that was dropped was haunted. Exactly. It was
a haunted bomb.
Yes, and in a way, I wish I had a better recall of all the Stephen King books I've read over the years because, it does make sense. It actually does make sense. Why would the Chinese want to take over Maine? Well, because maybe Stephen King wasn't making it up when he said that there is a diner in Maine that has a secret portal in its basement that takes you to the past. And you can either go to the past and buy cheap hamburger meat and bring it back to the future and thus continue to sell your hamburgers at incredibly low rates. Or you can go back and you can change the past. For example, stopping the JFK assassination. Of course, you don't realize that by doing this, you accidentally make Curtis LeMay president and then they fucking nuke China and lots of bad things happen. So the Chinese read 11/22/63 and what they realized was that actually Stephen King was telling the truth. There is, in fact, a portal to the past in a diner basement in Maine, and they need to control that. Because if they can go back in time, there's all sorts of stuff. They can stop Chiang Kai-shek from getting to Taiwan. They can stop Douglas MacArthur from ever becoming the Supreme Allied Commander. There are all sorts of things they can do to make their lives easier. But they've got to get access to that time portal in the diner in Maine. And so that's why, they're striking precisely. This is what Sun Tzu would have recommended.
They're going to find all kinds. See, and this is the problem. They're going to show up for that, and then they're going to accidentally bury their war dead in the pet cemetery, or one of them is going to steal Christine by accident. This has all kinds of hijinks. If we just bring in every Stephen King book, every Stephen King story, some of them go to the PX, and it happens to be the Needful Things store, and it's oh, finally, I got that beef jerky that I always really liked, and I could never get it. Oh no, my teeth fell out. What a horrible twist. Oh. The Chinese are invading Maine to take over our occult epicenter that is just built around Stephen King.
The Chinese realize the only way to modernize their economy and to take over the world, to achieve an even more dominant position is to have the accounting acumen of Andy Dufresne, so they're going to go get him.
We're going to bust Andy Dufresne out of Shawshank so we can do our taxes.
Exactly. Look, man, there's an extent to which, okay, we could riff on this forever, but I just am wondering why people to understand the Q brain, you have to believe that this is true and that A, this could happen, B, this would happen, and C, that any of this is possible. And so let's continue on just so we can get to what this guy is thinking of. He says the news is spinning around my head right now and I'm trying to piece it all together. I wanted to at least get this thread out. Maybe we can do some deeper digging on this. If Steve's report is all accurate, then 50,000 Chinese have been virtually living in my backyard and were just exterminated. To say I'm floored right now is an understatement. We may be in the midst of World War III and nobody knows it. Military is the only way. Pray for them. Praying hands emoji. By the way, this, of course, all lines up perfectly with reports we've been hearing that China has troops on the Canadian border. It also lines up perfectly with the idea that if China wants our farmland, they can't nuke us. They would have to infiltrate and take it by force. Please feel free to add or elaborate, as I know you understand all this well. Now, all right, there's a thing that I feel like you should maybe know about China. Is that China is a fucking huge country. China is bigger than the United States. China, of course, does have the world's largest population. It also has a lot of land that is not populated. The further west you go in China, the less populated it is. And that is not all. Some of it is steppe, some of it is not arable, but a lot of it is. A lot of it is. If China wants farmland, they can just expand into China. If China wants farmland or they want places to do things for China, they could also, employ all of their enormous amounts of development projects around the world to acquire those things from countries where they have been doing this for decades. So the idea that China's like, we need more farmland, we need to invade Maine, I just feel like there are easier ways to achieve that.
It is a weird, like, people are starting to think that, I don't know, that I guess that China has the same goals as any general American would have, which is, I'm just going to go and take things because I can by force. Like, that's something America would do. China would probably do it too, obviously, with Taiwan, but I just really don't.
Or the Spratly Islands, or, you know, the South China Sea, or the other things. But like, the idea being that when China does expansionist stuff, it's doing it in its own backyard. Like China's territorial claims, where it basically says, oh yeah, our maritime borders basically extend all the way to the northern coast of Australia. Like, yeah, that's a bit worrisome, I suppose, if you live in Indonesia, or you live in the Philippines, or you live anywhere in that region. But they're not saying that their territorial claim extends to New Brunswick. So,
and I'm not going to say that, like, in that the grand CCP goal one day is just to have a united Chinese world, but I don't think that they're moving ahead on those steps currently. I feel like we've probably got 100 years before that.
Actually, Francis, I'm a devotee of Xi Jinping thought, and I actually think that this is a good thing. I welcome a COVID response like China's. I truly, in my heart, welcome a COVID response like Vietnam's. However, I agree with you in the sense that, yeah, I mean, if you live in the Philippines, if you, for example, make your livelihood fishing in the Philippines, you got some concerns with the Chinese basically establishing military outposts, building artificial islands, and more or less harassing fishermen out of areas where they've operated, for forever. However, I don't think that you have to worry about Chinese military occupation if you live in the northeastern extremity of the United States. As you and I have proven through a little bit of map research and, trying to pronounce names of geographic features for the first time, it is a long way to get from the Pacific coastline of China to the far, far northeast corner of America. Could you do it? Sure. But I mean, I'm just going to be...
You can't do it without somebody noticing. Like, you can't.
Of course not.
There's no way you can sneak a ship.
Of course not.
You can't.
And if China wanted to take over part of America, it would take over parts of America. First of all, like, obviously they're not going to go through all that right now. Like, the risk to reward, the cost to reward is so great. Like, they're not as stupid as America is. Like, they're not as deranged. Like, Chinese Bill Kristol doesn't have as much influence as American Bill Kristol does. But if they were going to do it, they would take over Hawaii. Like, Midway,
or Guam. There's so many other places to take first.
Yeah, like a midway point in the Pacific, like that has basically almost the entirety of America's Pacific military presence. Come on. Like, it's absurd to think they would be like, yeah, we could take over Guam, we could take over American Samoa, we could take over the Marianas Islands, we could take over Hawaii, we could take over the Aleutians, we could take over, I don't know, fucking anywhere on the Pacific. But no. Fuck that. Bay of Fundy. The goddamn Bay of Fundy. That is America's fucking economic lifeline. And we are going to control that.
They must have just watched Perfect Storm and found out that that's where the best fishing was. And they're like, well, we're not going to take a dinky fishing boat because that fell over in a squall. So we're going to take 50,000 Chinese troops to make sure that we can fish off of the bay. Hey, like I said, personally, I would take Guam first. But that's just me. Maybe the Chinese, the Chinese. I was gonna say the Chinese Sun Tzu, but I guess Sun Tzu was Chinese. So,
what if China had a military strategist at the caliber of Sun Tzu? He could be Chinese Sun Tzu.
Well, I mean, hey, attack where your enemies don't think you're going to attack. Maine would not expect that.
Exactly.
Would not expect 50,000 Chinese troops. So yeah, they're just following the art of Sun Tzu, the art of war. We need to get Dr. Seb Gorka up there to run over them with his Sun Tzu Mustang.
With his like inline 4 Mustang, like the cheapest model possible that has art war custom license plates. Yeah. So I guess the thing about it is here is okay. There's a whole follow up about deep underground networks within the planet, and how the governor of Maine has been bought by the Chinese, and how there's a complex somewhere in the middle of nowhere out there in Maine that has been denuded of forest, and it's owned by a Chinese investment firm, and yeah, they're building tunnels and stuff. And I guess it's just one of those things where I got to be honest with you. If you want to believe this, you can. But to me, I feel like there's an extent to which this is just, it's worrisome, and it's also really funny. It's worrisome because these people are adults and shouldn't have an excuse to believe this, but they do. And they own guns, and they believe Trump is a warrior god emperor. But also it's really, really funny that they're like, oh yeah, this entire, like you said, Francis, they just did fucking Operation Overlord in Canada for some reason, and nobody noticed it. Not a soul noticed it. And then they all died and left no trace because we basically have a bomb out of Captain Planet or something that can just like eliminate all garbage. Like, I'm flabbergasted, maybe not surprised, but to be honest with you, I've never really engaged with QAnon stuff. So this is sort of my first encounter. So I don't even know where to begin.
It's the same with me. And while I was reading through this thread today, here's what pissed me off. You have a thread like this, and as we noted in there, there's a mention of Obama, and Obama wouldn't care about this. Obama is just letting, the Chinese in. He's doing this to let the Chinese in to attack America. And if you dig deep enough in, these are people who are like, lock Hillary up and, drain the swamp, and all these politicians are bad. And the problem is that they're correct. They're not correct in the right way, but they're correct that all these people are bad and no good. Obama sucks. Like, we've talked about it multiple times. Do I believe that Obama specifically started citing maritime fishing irregularities and said this is a protected area to sneak 50,000 troops in? Chinese troops? No, I don't believe that at all. Do I think that Obama is a neoliberal bastard who is more worried about continuing the patriarchy, continuing racism, and continuing capitalism because it's what works best for him and the people who make him powerful? Yeah. I mean, and that's not weird. Like, you don't need to go deep into conspiracy theories. You don't need to think that Hillary Clinton is involved in some sort of underground, child sex ring thing to think that like all these people are terrible, but also they might be involved in those things. We kind of know that. And unfortunately Epstein died. There's a lot of, my thing is there's a lot of conspiracies that like you can really dig into and find a lot of evidence and be like, I think this is real and it's freaking me out. And I don't know why you would, instead of those things, you would go for this wild, like, we dropped a bomb and killed 50,000 people and nobody knows about it. And it was in Canada. Like in Canada, along the Maine border, not even like in nowhere Canada, not along the Yukon where you just probably scare a couple moose. This is like on a border in a place that has a Walmart. They dropped a 30,000-pound bomb and nobody knows about it. There are real conspiracies out there, guys, that you can really get into. Just start looking into MK Ultra. But like the Q brain is just, I don't know. It's like wired weird. It's like I would expect these people to be leftists in a way, but instead they want to murder everybody. And so instead they're weird right-wing QAnon people. And so like I said, it's like they're kind of, I agree with them to a point that like when they say these people are bad and I say, yes, they're bad. And then they say they're bad because, 50,000 Chinese troops. No. But they're bad for other reasons. But, you're not going to talk to this guy. You're not going to talk to LeBron's on roids and tell him, actually, I think Obama's bad because he deported 3 million people. And then, they'll probably be like, oh, no, wait, that's good. I like Obama for that. So, it's weird to dig into it. It's weird to look at it. And, there's podcasts that are dedicated to, there's QAnon Anonymous. And I think that we've talked about QAnon once or twice. It's really not our wheelhouse, and I don't want it to be our wheelhouse. But this is military related. That's why we're kind of dedicating an episode to it, and anything that is military related and also Stephen King related. As two white males in our 30s, I'm sure we both read a lot of Stephen King.
Yeah, I actually read the entire original uncut manuscript of The Stand when I was 12. It took me like a month because I checked it out from the library. But yeah, I read that book when I was 12. I read.
Speaking of, the new miniseries starts tomorrow.
Oh, sweet! Yeah, I've never watched the only TV production of any Stephen King thing I've ever watched are like the big movies like It, The Shawshank Redemption, Stand by Me.
They're not. His short stories really translate better. Like Stand by Me, Apt Pupil, and Shawshank Redemption are all part of the Four Seasons.
Yeah, isn't that crazy to think about? Like the dude, Stephen King was so powerful in the early '80s that he wrote a short story collection with 4 novellas, and 3 of them got made into movies that were all more or less successful.
Yeah, they're all like good movies. I've actually never seen Stand by Me.
Oh, you should, man. I've never seen Apt Pupil, but I remember when it came out. Stand by Me is really good.
I took a girl on a date to Apt Pupil. I had no idea what that movie was about. No idea what that movie was about. It was not a smart move.
It's funny, by the way, because we were talking this to wrap this up. I just happened to check. I refreshed Twitter after looking through that thread, and somebody that I follow says, "Good morning from Maine," and it's a car in front of him. It's a Chevy HHR, and it looks like I don't know. It's a Chevy SUV, and in like mailbox font, you know what I mean? Like individual letters that you would use to put on like mailbox lettering. It says, "Chi-Coms gave us virus, stole our collections, threatened our Navy. It's war! ! Nuke China." And then the plate says, "Maine, vacation land." Oh my God, I love it. America rules so hard. I mean, it could be worse. You could be in Britain where
there used to be a time, Nate, where you couldn't get away with this. Where or at least your insane things weren't being put out there for everybody to read.
I absolutely understand why China controls the internet, like its own internet. I absolutely get it now. I mean, I was just laughing too because in Britain the big scandal this week was that there are a couple of them, but one of them is that the new leader of the Labour Party, who does a monthly radio show with like a racist DJ for basically like a really racist talk show, they had somebody on who was just doing, great replacement theory and like I want an Israeli nation state law, but for white indigenous Britons because we shouldn't be outnumbered and blah blah blah. And it turns out this woman is a racist yoga instructor who lives in Ibiza now, and it's just like racist yoga instructor who lives in Ibiza is such a very British energy, and to me, this a perfectly efficient like sealed entropic force of a 30,000-pound bunker buster bomb that eliminated an entire D-Day for China without a trace to stop them from invading Maine for farmland. That to me, like that could only exist in the American mind. And so in a way I kind of respect it, but also I understand why Xi Jinping was like, no more open internet for y'all, no more VPNs for y'all, and shut it all down, because I don't know where this stuff goes, but it breeds crazy in a huge way.
Yeah. All right, Nate, you want to talk about your bonus episode?
So if you're interested in the Cold War Black Ops edition of Call of Duty, we brought on Zoomer correspondent Kevin Frint yet again to give us a walkthrough of the game, talk about the plot. We talk a little bit about Cold War history and how you better understand this stuff, because this is going to be what people assume actually happened in a couple of years once this becomes their sole point of contact with Cold War history in general. So I'm going to play a quick 10-minute preview of that. That's available at the $1 tier, because I realize we haven't unlocked any $1 stuff in a while. And if that's interesting to you, you can sign up via a link in the show notes.
I'm just laughing. It's like if you can pick XMI6, then it would be amazing if you had a sort of, because you picked that background, then a bunch of side quests for you to do bathroom cop gender inspections that merge.
Yeah, not TV license inspector.
Yeah, exactly. Just driving around, rolling the crank in the fake inspection van. Yes, exactly.
I would love that as a side mission in this game.
Holy shit. That would be amazing. Like Call of Duty, but it's like MI5 instead of MI6, and it's just incredibly dumb British things that like people wouldn't understand unless they lived here. I would actually buy like a PS4 or a PS5 and play that game.
And then, yeah, in general, you as like the player character, your name is Bell, and you're treated as the FNG, as is the case in most COD games, where that's kind of how they build you up. It's like they like kind of your teammates shun you at first, and then as you build rapport with them, it shows like character progression. It's very advanced, super cool stuff. And I guess it's not ahistorical. That's except for some people, they just continue to get treated like shit at their unit for the rest of their lives. Then we go into the first mission. It's called Operation Fracture Jaw, where Bell has to perform a quote-unquote memory exercise to remember Da Nang while inside the safe house, which, I mean, I get, like, people, like, remember trauma differently, but this becomes, like, a different story with this game. So you fade in to...
Wait.
Go ahead.
Wait, so, like, you're basically Twilight Zoning into, like, a memory flashback from Vietnam to, like, fight Vietnam to get backstory on your character?
Backstory on the character and Perseus to approach, like, to figure out, like, get some intelligence on Perseus to decode this document you find.
Oh my god. Okay. All right. I'm with you. I mean, sort of what is it? BACD progression in storytelling. But I don't know. Given what we've seen so far, I'm excited to see how they handle the Vietnam War, and I'm sure there won't be any ridiculous cliches.
Yeah, so you fade in to Adler waking you up while wearing tiger stripe fatigues, like the notorious CIA uniform.
Oh, sweet. He's Mac VSOG.
Yeah, exactly. He's saying, we got a job to do. So you grab some bullets and guns and stuff, and then you go to the flight line where Sims is sitting in a bird, like waiting to take off, reading a nudie mag, while Steppenwolf's Magic Carpet Ride plays. Like, this game's like this. Like, when I first played this, I wanted to put it down. I was like, this sucks so much, man. I was like, come the fuck on.
Yeah.
Like, you guys suck at writing. God, like, don't let me write the Call of Duty game, but like, please find someone else. Fire whoever thought of this.
Yeah, I mean, the thought crossed my mind of just laughing about that. I'm like, yeah, you know what I want to do before I do a combat mission in Vietnam at night? Be really horny. Just like fucking, just get ragingly hard before I go fly and get shot at. Hell yeah.
So you get in the chopper and lift off, where Adler gets another bird and says, like, hey, you guys have a separate mission. Like, you can join back up with the convoy after you're done. And so you deviate from the convoy to, like, secure this document. You, like, approach this village in a Vietnamese mountainside, and you begin coming under fire. For some reason, you as the player character man the minigun instead of the crew chief. I mean, of course you do, but yeah, you just mow down this whole village. Suspension of disbelief as they like flood your bird with like machine gun and rocket fire that would have easily taken down any helicopter. Then you and Sims on your lonesome land in the village and clear it. Like, you stack like 100 Vietnamese like fighting bodies against you, and you kill them all. So you approach this like the central command post, like where you suspect this thing to be, and it's like all of a sudden like these guys in balaclavas come out. Like, whoa, they don't look like Russians, or I'm sorry, they don't look like Viet Cong. So yeah, then you shoot a couple of them once you get into this like bunker, which has a big red door. It's very like important that you remember this. Not really, but. So you get in and you murk them, and then you call for extraction. After you grab this like booklet of information, where you then begin flying the helicopter, and they tell you as you get in the helicopter that the whole place is a free fire area, and like all these like little like hamlets and like buildings on the side of a river and a mountain start opening up on you. You can just like lay waste to the Vietnamese countryside. Just so good. Oh yeah, and you fight a Russian helicopter too, which never happened, but yeah, great.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't really disprove my theory that Call of Duty games are becoming sort of like medieval, warrior tales kind of thing, like heroic. I'm trying to think of what like epic poem kind of things, like Chanson de Roland or something like that, or like La Prise d'Orange, where it's just like, the warrior knight is able to slay 100 Saracens with one blow of his sword to rescue the Saracen queen who happens to be white for some reason. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. It's just one guy is just so powerful that entire armies cannot stop him.
Literally just slaying, armies with the jawbone of an ass.
Exactly. It's like, wow, we thought you were going to go to combat operations. We didn't expect you to cleave an entire NBA platoon in twain. But that's what happens when, you send out the guy who carries a broadsword, even though it's 1968.
So you then, you do your thing in the helicopter. You defend this fire base on a hill that's under siege. You clear it out and land. The base commander comes up. Adler cusses at him or something, calls him a fucking idiot. Doesn't care. And it turns out he hands you a small nuclear device. And Sims is freaking out. He's like, "Whoa, what the hell? What is that?" And then it's the size of a beer keg, and no one cares. It's just cool after that. And then immediately after, you're shot down, and you do a broken arrow, Albo style holdout until you throw a purple smoke grenade, and then within 30 seconds, F4 Tomcats come in and just napalm the whole place, but don't hit you surprisingly, or the nuke. So just classic. This is just a repeating motif. I don't know how I'm not tired of saying wow about this shit, but this is something that Jack Ryan, Jack Reacher, Mission Impossible 24 never imparted onto me. The level of holy cow, this person has a million lives. They're not a cat which has 9. They just infinitely survive things that would kill most people regularly. I don't know. It's dumb of me to ask realism of Call of Duty, I guess, outside of token representation.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's good to know that that we are both going to realistically assess America's dirty wars in the 80s as well as the Vietnam War. Wow. Okay, so let's just recap here. So, suitcase nuke, entire platoon of fighters clove in twain. Magic carpet ride, basic helicopters, 60s rock, everything you could possibly imagine to make Vietnam cliche, but also a suitcase nuke and as I said before, or similar device, and some slightly mystical shit.
Yeah, it's very clearly something is the whole thing rubbed me the wrong way when I played it, and we'll discuss why that was later. So next is the cutscene after the mission where Hudson says the memory exercise went well. Like I said earlier, some people I think would remember Da Nang, but people do process trauma differently. So whatever, he performed a memory exercise to remember. Next stop is to get a hold of a Russian arms dealer named Volkov by squeezing his informant in West Berlin. So you start on a super dark and dingy train car as Bell with Lazar and Adler. And then, you get the signal to go to the back car that's clear, and then jump off a moving train, and don't for no reason. The train was coming to a stop at a station. You could have just waited for it to halt, but instead you hit the ground at 50 miles an hour and don't break anything. From there, you creep around these back abandoned stations. You kill a few Stasi guards, which, by the way, are all dressed like Nazis, the gray dress uniforms, the jack boots. The similar high cut collars. I don't know how realistic that is. I'm not a scholar on the 80s or Germany. I don't know if you are or not, Nate.
Not really, but I mean, let's be perfectly honest. If you wanted to pick the intelligence service that had the most ex-Nazis in it, it would be the West German intelligence service. So,
ding ding ding.
Yeah. So I mean, hey, jury's still out on this one, but I'm, you may not know this, but we had a very strange relationship with East Germany to the extent that East Germans were allowed to do observation of military stuff in West Germany. They had teams and they were allowed to independently drive around and monitor stuff, and we were too in East Germany. So you had American or NATO officer observers who just had a car they could just drive around, and when exercises were happening they could just go check stuff out.
Cool.
You didn't have to. You didn't have to, halo into the ocean and fucking scuba all the way up, whatever. I'm trying to think to get to the border with East Germany and Poland at Danzig or something like that to sneak in. You know what I mean? It wasn't quite that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was considered a hostile foreign power, but it wasn't infiltrating North Korea. You know what I mean?
All right, everybody. As always, you can follow me at Army Strang, follow Nate at In These Deserts, follow the podcast at Hell of a Way. We are all over. We're constantly posting. We never stop posting. We'll always be posting. And I actually just uploaded a new YouTube video. That's I'm gonna try to do more streaming of leftist anti-war zines from Vietnam. Apparently, there were tons of them. So we're gonna do some readings of those, and hopefully that'll be fun for everybody and not just me. So go check that out on our YouTube. Of course, also our episodes are up there and everything. So, but other than that, you can follow. You can get us on Patreon as well, and we'll talk to you next week.